And then okay, hi everyone. It's a little hard to see you guys. I hope you guys are having fun over on the other side of the world there. So hi, I'm Kimberley, photography and tech wizard from over in Australia. Couple of right before COVID, as in my bio, after being at BoothCon in January of 2020, I noticed there was a huge gap in technology knowledge in the industry. And especially over here in Australia, we didn't actually have any tech support businesses at all. So I decided to actually start a photo booth tech support business right before COVID. But anyhow, so I am the founder and the photo booth tech specialist at SnapTech, and we support Australian photo booth operators with their technical needs. We're probably very similar to photo booth support over in the US. So yeah. Anyway, so just a little bit about me. I am one of those rare people that is a little bit both creative and technical. So I also have a way of being able to help other people understand tech concepts. So your tech world translator. So I kind of understand tech and am able to kind of bring it into sort of a very simple way that maybe not so tech savvy people can sort of understand. One thing that I absolutely love doing is understanding how things work and how to make things work better as well. And technology in that case is 100% your friend there. So I'm also a bit of an early adopter when it comes to a lot of tech. Actually, I bought my first smart TV over 10 years ago, actually. And at the moment in our house, we don't really use light switches. Google might have a little bit too much control of my life, but you know. Anyway, so the other thing that I also am is I actually build my own photo booths. So to be a photo booth builder, I needed to understand everything about my photo booth. So, and how everything connects together and works together. And that's from software to all the cords to even like the shell itself. So one thing about being a booth builder is that you have to know things inside out. So, yeah, so I mean, it hasn't always been smooth sailing at all of my photo booth jobs. I have definitely learned a lot of what I'm going to speak about here on the job. So, but we'll get into sort of what we're going to talk about. Firstly, photo booth businesses are tech businesses. You need to be tech savvy, and we're women in tech. And obviously, a lot of us do have gaps in this knowledge. And I thought I'd just kind of give a little bit of a list on ways that you can actually boost your tech knowledge. And firstly, read and learn. Just read as much as you possibly can about everything. The other thing is play around, have fun with everything, experiment, break things, and then try to fix them. Obviously not while you're at events, but definitely get in there and just play around with things, see how things work, how things don't work. And that helps us with getting familiar with technology, like your equipment, your software, even getting really familiar with technology in general. It will make a lot of these things a lot easier to do. The other thing is build or create something in your business. Like props, for instance, design a custom interface, build your own photo booth shell, your website. If you go in and you try and do every little step of those projects, the amount of stuff you learn from just getting in and giving it a go and building and creating something is amazing. But there's also one other place that is so helpful, especially for photo booth operators. It's almost like a match made in heaven. And they're called maker spaces. And the amount of knowledge that you have in those groups is insane. And you have knowledge from anything from electrical to woodwork to design to just any idea that you have. There's someone there that can help you build it and make it, and it will give you such a good area to really build skills and learn more about things. It's just another way of just kind of boosting your tech knowledge. Now, once you've sort of started doing all that, what you need to do is find out where your gaps are. So have a look where your gaps are with technology and get support. So hire tech savvy attendants. This one's a good one. The IT support help desk staff are great options for that. They are able to think on the fly if anything goes wrong. They can just tend to fix things really quickly. So that's always a very good option. Tap into the photo booth networks. So from the people that you've met face to face to the Facebook groups, like Strong Women Photo Booth Owners. In these networks and everything, there is such a wealth of knowledge and so many people willing to help. So get in there, chat to people, ask help. And then finally, get in touch with either photo booth support or SnapTech, where we're your great options for that safety net, especially when you're at events, when things go wrong, knowing that you've got someone to call when it goes wrong. That's what these services are there for you, to make sure you can get these events run smoothly. So definitely get in touch with them. So we are going to have a little bit of basic tech knowledge that we're going to go over that you kind of need to know to be in this industry. But what it kills me when I hear of operators who will literally have a tech issue and then shut down their event and then refund. Honestly, there is no excuse. Tech issues are not an excuse to complete a job. That you can work out solutions as long as you have a strong level of knowledge and knowing how to do emergency troubleshooting. You should be able to have 100% job completion rate. I've been running my photo booth business for the last decade. I think I'm in my 11th year now, and I have completed every single job, 100%. I personally, I don't understand how anyone would have less than 100% job completion rate, but there are things that you need to do with that. And that brings me to the most important part: backups, backups, and backups. So it's definitely a guarantee. Things will go wrong. Hopefully not at every event, but guaranteed something will go wrong at some point. And it's how you deal with it that matters. Your reputation for your business is actually on the line to ensure that, not only is it that it could cost you more by having to refund events, maybe giving gifts to smooth over what you've done, but your referral business is also going to drop ridiculously as well, because you don't complete jobs if you are not prepared. So that brings us down. We never know what might fail. So it's really important that we're prepared. So I do come from a wedding photography background, and when you're a wedding photographer, we have no option but to complete that job, no matter what. So I feel it's no different in my photo booth business. And at every event, I literally have a backup for everything. I could literally build a second photo booth with all my backups, minus the shell, of course. Now, that brings us into your backup oh shit kit. What goes into it? Now, this isn't going to be like a tiny little first aid kit. This is going to require a decent case. We are talking about having everything, maybe including the kitchen sink. So probably your last step in getting your backup kit together is finding a good road case to contain all the stuff. Anyway, that brings us into the first step of putting together what needs to go into your photo booth kit, your backup kit. So your quest. When you get home, you need to go through and look through your photo booth, and do this for each photo booth that you have, and literally write down every single component and cable that's in your photo booth. That can be the touchscreen power cord, touchscreen USB cord, display cord, camera ACD adapter. You kind of get the idea there. Every little component that is inside your photo booth. And obviously each photo booth is slightly different. And that's why you write it for each photo booth. You need to be extremely detailed. Think about everything that might even possibly need to be removed, or replaced. So that could even be like the bolt holding your camera on the mount, for instance. But a little pro tip while you're doing this, add the models of all the different things and your serial numbers to your list. It literally kills two birds with one stone. You've just started your business asset register, which will definitely help you when you come to insurance or loan purposes. Definitely a good idea to do. And so this is the start of your backup kit. And then once you've got this list, it's time to go shopping for what you don't have. Now, the PC that runs your photo booth, it's the brains of your booth, and without it, you really don't have anything. So you need a fully working backup. You need to have your photo booth software installed. Most booth software providers, they do offer a second install on a license that you can use as a backup. You just can't use those two machines at the exact same time. On that machine, on that backup, you want to make sure that you have the event files saved on that system and loaded into the software. And you also want to make sure that that backup PC is also configured to automatically connect to your mobile hotspot or your router, and just any other configurations that you would have on your normal booth PC, just so that if you ever do need to swap it out, you can just literally do it quickly and you don't have to worry about any configuration, and the event can go ahead smoothly. Now, in my humble opinion, this backup should absolutely be a laptop. I know a lot of the photo booths do have the NUCs and the mini PCs, but one of the advantages to laptops is that you can take it in and out of your photo booth. You don't have to get the photo booth out and actually mark it. Yeah, so you don't have to get the photo booth out and turned on to configure it all. So yeah, and then so definitely with the backup laptop, it's very important to ensure that you have all the cables that are required with it. So for example, a USB Type-C hub or a display port to a HDMI adapter. These are actually items that I have specific to individual laptops. Now, one thing to also do is with your event files, make sure you save it on your main PC, your backup laptop, but a very good idea to also have a USB option for it as well. Yeah, and what else to include in your kit? Spare printer. Most events, I have a spare printer with me. It's gotten me out of trouble on a couple of occasions where for some reason the printer wasn't working and I was running out of time to troubleshoot. I just grabbed the spare printer, put it in the booth, and off it went. Successful event. And then I look into the tech issue without the pressure of an event at a later date. And yeah, the other thing is, it's also a good rule of thumb to have a box of media with you. One roll to replace an empty roll and a spare for it if anything goes wrong with the change, which does happen. And yes, that does technically mean that I would be taking 2,800 prints with me to every job. I do have the RX1s, and yes, every job I take 2 RX1s and a box of media. The other thing that we need to do, including our backup, is lighting backup. Now, a bit of a story time. I was doing a photo booth hours away from home. The wedding was in a marquee with temporary flooring. Every single step by someone would move the floor, which meant the booth moved all the time. And I have one of those big module types that are generally stable. But due to all this movement, the fuse in my light blew. Oh shit, I had no light for my booth. In the middle of nowhere, hours from home. Yes, I was silly. I didn't pack up backup. And time for some problem solving. I was even considering running to the local hardware to purchase some stuff. However, I was able to look around the room and notice there was the videographer's lights. They were amazing and let me use it. And that got me through the rest of the job. Client none the wiser. And from then, never did a job again without backup lights. Although I've not added the fuse to the backup kit yet. Maybe I should do that. Anyway, so it's really simple. It doesn't have to be expensive for this lighting backup. And it doesn't matter if you're normally a strobe or continuous lighting person. I am continuous lighting, so happy to chat about my why. Just ask me. But just grabbing a double lamp holder with an umbrella socket and a couple of screw-in fluorescent lamps and a silver umbrella will get you out of trouble. But wait, there's more. A little bit more to include in your kit. This stuff generally will get you out of trouble, but they're not necessarily needed for the booth to run. A small toolkit with screwdriver, Allen keys, cable ties, cable cutters, scissors and tape. Now, this one is primarily for those pesky ribbon tears. Mouse and keyboard is a very good idea, especially if your booth is run off a NUC or a mini PC and the touchscreen plays up. Gaffer tape, I mean, you can solve all the world's problems with gaffer tape, right? And they're great for emergency repairs to machines. Oh, and taping down cables. And lastly, get yourself a colored label bag to put cables in that you've removed from the booth during troubleshooting to be tested or maybe to be thrown away. Now, that's your backup kit. But backups don't just stop there. You need to be able to protect your business data. So then, yeah. Now, obviously, your event images, they are number one. And you're probably already backing images up automatically to an extent, but you want them in many different locations. So obviously, you've got the images saved to the booth computer and maybe to the cloud storage that you've got connected to that computer. I mean, you could always save it onto the camera's cards, but I don't really do that. Another copy is the USB you provide to your client. Again, that's another backup of your event images. Then when you return after the job, definitely copy those files to your business file storage. I personally use a NAS with a RAID 5 configuration. This gives my hard drives redundancy for if one dies. This business file storage should definitely be set up with a regular cloud backup service. You're likely to have them also in your cloud image delivery system. So like Dropbox or any galleries where you're delivering it to your clients, but just the images are everything. So ensuring that you've got multiple locations where these images are number one. But one other business data that you definitely need to protect is your website. So saving regular backups of your website to your business file drive is a very good idea. I use WordPress, and through there, I can absolutely back up from there. But however, if your website platform doesn't have a backup tool, you should be able to back up your website through your hosting provider. And if you're saving it on your business file drive, and then you've got that cloud backup storage, then your website backups are going to be backed up as well. And the one time that you definitely want to do that is before you update anything on your website, make sure you do a backup of it. Now, this one is not one that many people probably think about, but it is so important. Your ideas and notes. And I mean, admittedly, I'm terrible at this. My notes are all over the place in multiple notebooks, different files on my computer. Let's just blame the ADHD in me, but you know. But getting all your notes in one location is so helpful. And even better, if it can go from a random note idea into a tool system that can help you accomplish it all. Now, the tool that I currently use is Clicker. This is where I can put all my ideas. I can put my plans and my checklists in, and I'm able to access it from my computer and from my phone. And it's very good for when I need to input on the run. Like there might be a tech maintenance repair thing that I need to do, and I can just quickly chuck it into ClickUp, and then I've got it there ready to go. And of course, we're talking about backups. So definitely exporting your data occasionally to ensure that you have a backup of your ideas and notes as well. Now, so that brings me to cloud backups. So there are a number of services out there that you can out there. However, I'm only going to let you know a little bit about the ones that I have used. Now, what the cloud backup is going to be backing up is your business file drive. It's an automatic backup. Once you've installed the software, it literally sits in the back and just automatically updates all your files. You do have to configure it beforehand. Just a word of warning, it's not really a good idea to use Dropbox or Google Drive, OneDrive, and the like for this backup. They don't give you enough storage, especially when we are in the image file business. You will eat up your allocation very quickly. So the two suggestions that I have, and I've used both of them, actually I'm currently using both of them, is CrashPlan and Backblaze. Now, basically they do that automatic update, but I'm going to give you a little bit of an example of something that happened for me. And so I had all my files backed up through CrashPlan. Unfortunately, my business drive did get corrupted. Yikes. But I was able to jump into CrashPlan and set the date before it was corrupted and be able to download those files. I only lost a few files because there was a couple of days in between the day that they got corrupted and the day that they were uncorrupted. And I definitely see that as a win of backups. So definitely check out CrashPlan or Backblaze to make sure that you are backing up all of your business files back at your home. So going from there, there is a little bit of base knowledge that we do need to know being in the photo booth industry. Now, one is you need to make sure you get your head around a Windows environment. Most digital SLR photo booth software is run off Windows operating system. So as a photo booth, operator, you really need to have a good understanding of the Windows operating system. Now, for those of you who are like me and grew up on PCs, this is probably easy as for you. However, if you're a Mac person, and I'll try not to hold that against you, getting familiar with how it works and the areas you need to go will make all the difference when needing to troubleshoot. But a little hint, you generally will be okay if you get to know about printers and scanners in the system settings inside out. Now, the next important thing that we definitely need to know and understand in the photo booth business is cords and cables. This is what our booths are run off, these cables. And so just having a bit of an idea of the different types of cables and what they're used for will just make life a little bit easier, especially when you're writing your list of what goes into your backup kit. So I've just got on this screen just a little bit of an explanation. You've got your mini to type A. This is for the cameras. So I have this cord for the Rebels that I use. We actually have it's called a different thing over here in Australia. Now there's the micro to type A. This is for the sort of newer cameras. So I use this in with the Canon M50s. The important thing with this one is you need to make sure that it's actually a data transfer cable. Otherwise, it won't actually work. So not just the really basic charge cables. Now, the type B to A, that's for your printers and for a number of touch screens. So that's the one with the big fat square one, that's your type B. And then where you've got your type C to type A. Now this one I use with my mobile routers, so the Wi-Fi hotspots. I use the Netgear Nighthawks, and they use the type C to charge. And of course, I mean, I think most people know the last one, but it's a lightning cable. And this one, of course, we use for iPads. The other type of cords that you probably want to get your head around is the display cords. So these are the 3 different types that you will generally need to have an idea of depending on what touchscreen that you have and what computer ports that you've got. So you want to double check what the screen has and double check what the computer has, because you might need to get adapters or you might need to get 2 different ends. But generally you've got your HDMI, your VGA, and the last one there, which I can see on my slide I've incorrectly put. It's not HDMI. That one there is a display port. So they're just all different types of display cords that connect your computer to the touchscreen. So that was just a little bit of basic knowledge, but now there's another little bit of basic knowledge that I think every photo boother needs to have a bit of an idea about, and that's coming to the photography exposure. So this is a little cheat sheet that I've put together for my attendants, just to give them a bit of understanding on how it works and sort of the settings that I sort of see as the ideal and sort of where the limit is. So I'll just go a little bit over this. You've obviously got your shutter speed, which is TV. The faster the speed, the less movement. So yeah, so if the shutter closes really quickly, then it's going to catch the movement in there. Whereas if the shutter closes really slowly, if while I'm moving my hand in the photo, you'll actually see the hand blur. And so movement blur can be avoided by having a faster shutter speed. Now, the numbers with all these kind of things can get very confusing. So I hopefully put it in a very simple way, but where you've got 1 over a larger number, that means it's a faster shutter speed. Now, this is sort of set for continuous shooting, continuous lighting. Obvious if you're using strobes and flashes, then you can probably get away with a faster shutter speed. You can definitely get away with a smaller aperture, yep. And you can definitely get away with a lower ISO. So do bear with me. I have been a photographer for quite a while, so sometimes I will actually just say things in a way that I understand because I've been doing it for a while. So yeah, so generally I like to have my shutter speed at 1 over 125. However, at times, depending on the lighting that I have around, I have been able to get away with 1 over 80. I would not go any slower than that. It would you will end up with really blurred photos. You'll have a lot of movement blur in it. Now with your aperture, so AV, the larger the number means the more is in focus and the less blurred background. So yeah, so but this is where it gets confusing, because it is a larger number, but it does mean it's a smaller aperture. it messes with my mind. Completely understand if it does for you. But yeah, so just trying to have that number as big as possible. However, in a photo booth sort of scenario where you, okay, I'm going to have to try and convert this, but generally a photo booth is roughly about 1.5 meters away from the subject. So I would say that would be roughly maybe 4 to 6 feet. I'm not very, I only really know metric, but from that, you really probably don't need an aperture that is any like 7.1, probably okay. But you don't need to get up into the 20s or anything like that. There's just no need. Then the ISO, which is your sensitivity. This isn't really a big deal to play with, especially with the newer cameras. You can kind of push that quite far. The only difference that happens is the higher the number, the more grain that you end up in your photograph. So if you do have it on quite a high number and you haven't got the shutter speed and the aperture right, your photos can end up looking really, really grainy, not looking very sharp or nice. So I honestly think the ideal is around that 3200. If you are using strobes, you can drop that down. Probably somewhere around the 400 or maybe even the 800, depending. But yeah, so this is just a little cheat sheet, give you a bit of an idea. So the larger number of the shutter speed, larger number of the aperture, the smaller number on the ISO will make a darker image, meaning it's underexposed, and then obviously the opposite. So that's just a little cheat sheet, but it's definitely one of the most important things we need to know as photo booth operators. So just a little bit of a advice nugget before we get into troubleshooting, but make sure that you have everything plugged in nice and tight before turning on the booth computer. It will minimize potential issues. So it just allows the computer, when you're turning the computer on, it wakes up knowing that all these devices are attached to it rather than trying to plug it in afterwards. And then that's where you can start to have a little bit of issues. So definitely a good thing to do. Now, with the troubleshooting, we're getting into troubleshooting. This is the most important thing. Now, troubleshooting basics. Yes, it is so stressful when things don't go right at events, but breathe. Breathe. Just breathe. Take a breath. Know that you've got this. You're prepared. You've remembered. You've got all your backups. And take it step by step. Attack it one step at a time. But just a little mental health check-in. If you are getting overstressed at events, and this happened to me back in 2019, and I was spiraling into a bit of a bad anxiety and depression, but every single photo booth job I was going to, I was ending up with a tension headache. It got pretty bad, and it was definitely really important that I went to my doctor, got some support and help, and ended up started to take some meds, and I was actually able to start getting through jobs without being so stressed, and it was fantastic. But the difference was just the normal stress versus just an unnecessary level of stress. So definitely check in with yourself, make sure you're doing okay, and if you're not, go get some support. But I digress. Now, the IT crowd, have you tried turning it off and on again? Definitely do this. Number one, first thing, and funnily enough, that might be all it takes to fix your problem. And hopefully, once you've started it back up, everything runs smoothly. However, I've got a little bit of a troubleshooting event workflow that we can go through that will be a good thing to have every time that you have to do some troubleshooting at an event. Okay, so it's very important to remember your goal when you have to troubleshoot is to do what you can do to make it through the event. Repairs, etc., can be done later. Anyway, so let's get into this workflow. So firstly, the first step is to check every cable, including the camera's AC adapter, are all tight and secure. It might be worth unplugging and replugging it all in. The batteries on some of the cameras can come a little bit loose, and that can account for some camera issues. And that has been the only issue I've had when Breeze software, which is what I use, stopped working, and it was because the battery was loose on my camera. So yeah, definitely check every single cable. Another thing, double check that the camera and the printer are actually switched on. Okay, once you've checked these two things, restart your computer. And crossing fingers, that's going to sort your problem. If not, the next step, change the port that cable's in. So say that, say it's the printer doesn't seem to be working. What you can do is take the type A side out of your laptop computer, out of that port, and put it into a different one. A little bit of a pro tip with that as well. With printers, don't put those into hubs. Printer cables, put them straight into the computer. You'll have less issues if you have it directly into a computer rather than into a hub. So change the port. You might not need to restart the computer, and then hopefully it starts to work. If not, change out the cables, swap out the cables. You've got your backups, and replace the cable. Now, this is where that little separate bag comes in handy. So the cable that you're pulling out of the booth that you're not 100% sure is working, you chuck it into that little bag so then it doesn't get mixed up with all the working cords that you've got in your backup kit. So yeah, so swap out your cables and then restart the computer, and hopefully that solves your problem. If that doesn't, swap it out. Replace the component of concern with your backup. So that might be swap out your printer, swap out your camera, swap out your computer. And then obviously restart. And again, crossing fingers, this has resolved your problem. Now, if that hasn't resolved your problem, this is generally if you're getting to this point, you're probably dealing with printers. You're having issues with printers. So the best place to start is go check the status. So for printers, you go into your printers and scanners and just sort of suss out what the status is of the device. If it's the camera that you're having issues with, you want to head to the device manager and make sure it's in there. In saying that, I've never had to do that for my camera. So yeah. Once you've sort of had a bit of a check of your status, you should have got a bit of information and might actually have a bit of an idea of what's actually going wrong. So for example, if it's a printer, so if the printer is actually showing that the printer is there as it should, so it's online, it's idle, so it's available, but it's just not printing, you probably want to go and check your print queue. So there's probably a file in there that is stopping all the rest of the files from coming through. One of the issues that I've found that does cause that is, for example, if your printer setting defaults are printing to the wrong sized media. So if you've got a 6x4 you've got 6x4 media in your computer. Sorry, 6x4 prints media in your printer, but you're printing to a 3.5. Yeah, so you're printing to a different size media. This will stop the printer from printing your prints. Some printers will show up as a printer error on the lights. Some printers, however, won't, and it just won't print. So definitely double checking that. So clear your print queue, double check all your printer setter defaults, and that should, in theory, resolve the issue. However, if the device is not showing, you probably need to reinstall the device and driver. So a good idea to have all those files on either a USB or on your computer to ensure that everything's going well. Now, of course, generally, if we're up here and we're still having issues, it's probably your printer that's the culprit. And in that case, honestly, you can get through the job without printing. Just operate the photo booth as you would. Of course, this is a business decision that you have to make. But honestly, you can get away with it and say, look, unfortunately, our printer is having some issues. We will ensure that we will print every single print in the next coming days and send it out to you. Most clients would probably be happy with that option because they still get the photo booth, they still get to use it. And the one little last kind of note that I would do is just write down a little note for your tech maintenance. So obviously you've had this troubleshooting thing, write a little note of something that you need to look at and make sure that you're getting everything fixed up. So, but if all you need to remember is, if in doubt, swap it out. And that will get you out of trouble more often than not. Now, Windows updates, this one, the bane of our existence, right? Now I do have a blog article talking about this and a few different options. For example, being able to disable your updates. Now it is all based on Windows 10, and I know that Windows 11 has come out. I will have to probably update that shortly. However, disabling your updates is really only available in the Windows Pro. And if you've got a Windows Home Edition, then there's really only one option that you have. And so I'm going to give you a little bit of a show on how that all works. What it is changing your active hours. And what this will do is minimize the chance of a Windows update actually occurring while you're at an event. So I will just go in and I'll give you a little bit of a walkthrough of how it works. So we've just come down to the search bar. This is the best place to pretty much do anything. You just type in whatever you need. So in this case, I'm typing in Windows Update. So we click into Windows Update settings. Oh, hang on. Sorry, I'm going to start that bit again. Okay, so basic, oh, sorry. Got it, get out of full screen there. And then we come into here and in your search bar, this is where everything helps. So typing in where you need to go in there will make life so much easier. And then I'll just click into Windows Update settings here. And obviously I'm ready to upgrade to Windows 11. And you just come down to here and you'll see that you've got change your active hours. Now it does have an automatic adjustment, but I probably wouldn't do this for the fact that we are not that regular that it can pick up how we use it. So what I would actually do is click that off and then come into here where you go current active hours and we hit change. And for your photo booth PC, I'd probably start at maybe 3 p.m. and probably let's go to about 1 a.m. Probably a smart idea. And then you hit save. And so generally what that will mean is that they're not going to do an automatic restart of a Windows update during those times. Now, obviously, if you have a day event, this is going to be a potential issue. So one thing that you can do is just jump in and just hit pause update for 7 days. So making sure that you're pausing it, and that should get you out of trouble. So that was just a little bit of an overview of the Windows update. And if you want to read a little bit more about that and how to actually disable it, definitely check out the blog. I will organize the link to be sent out. And that just gives you a bit more of an overview and a walkthrough on how to actually disable that. So I'll just jump back into, yeah. Okay, so obviously Windows updates, and yes, it's always scary when you get that blue screen, right? But there are ways to minimize it, and definitely just making sure that you have a few of those little extra steps. Probably a good idea to start writing down some checklists on little workflows to ensure that we can minimize issues coming forward. So that brings me to the end of this lovely talk. Hopefully I gave you a decent amount of information and a good starting point for your tech knowledge. I love a chat, so definitely get in touch, and I'm happy to give anyone my wealth of knowledge. So thank you for having me, and I hope you got something out of this talk.